Illinois Congressman Chuy Garcia's retirement is stirring up some interest.
And we got Chicago activist José Requena on the show today to talk about it.
Greetings and salutations. Hello from the North Pole. I saw Santa. Santa was making gifts at the shop next door because it's so icy here.
Was he kissing mommy?
No, he had frostbite and was being he took an Uber to the hospital because he couldn't afford the ambulance. Because even Santa be broke this time of year. Y'all know what's up. What's up? Whoa,
what's going on with Rudolph? Wait a minute. Did the reindeer unionize and he's not paying them? Then he deserved the frostbite.
He's just stupid. He just go outside and he don't put on his cream like he's supposed to. And no, he's fine. Everything's fine. Santa's good. I'm actually growing out the beard. So once we get close to then, which is not very far away. What's today? The third? Today's the third?
It is the third. Yeah, we got 22 days left.
Yeah.
Got that Advent calendar, Uncle Warren?
Yes, and it's full of disappointment and the tears of children. So it's the worst Advent calendar ever. And that's why I don't like to ask people what day it is, or especially when they ask me what day it is. Then I have to go open it up and eat one of those. And it's not tasty. Not at all. Not at all. I'll just go on. But the chocolate ones are really good. Do you do those? Do you do the Advent calendar thing?
They're too much of a temptation. I mean, they've got the wine ones, they got the booze ones, they've got some for like cheese and all that stuff, but it's too much of a temptation. So I'll just
cheese watch Advent calendar.
They got them for just about everything these days. But seriously, I don't, because they're just too much of a temptation. I can just watch them on YouTube or something like that and live vicariously.
Yeah, but you can't taste it. You can't taste it if it's on YouTube. I'd be saying one day equals a week. That Advent calendar would be gone in 20 seconds. Yeah, if it was cheese. I like chocolate though, but I got
cheese is something else, Uncle Warren. When I come back to Chicago, let's hit up my favorite cheese shop there, Beautiful Rind.
Beautiful Rind?
Yeah, they have the most amazing cheese. It's in Logan Square. Worth checking out. They get stuff that nobody else gets.
I love a good cheese.
Get over to Beautiful Rind, but we'll leave it like during Lent. They do these Friday tinned fish specials, and you get like a fixed plate thing with cheese and tinned fish and arugula salad and nuts and pickles and that sort of thing, and it's really awesome. We'll do that, but yeah.
It sounds fun. It sounds nuttylicious with the pine nuts and the things in there.
Oh yeah.
I know you're so highbrow with your healthy stuff. Me, I'm just like, eating sandwiches over here and hoping for the best. So
hey, you got a sandwich making video on TikTok, Uncle Warren.
I do.
How to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Check out Uncle Warren on TikTok.
Yes, bored in the kitchen. And, I saw this video where it said something about, how you could just make dumb videos and people will watch it. It's all right. I'll check it out. And I said, all right, I'm just going to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Nothing crazy. And did a silly voice and nothing fancy. And yeah, they got a few views. So I guess people were, maybe they were educated.
Maybe in the new year, you and I'll do some fun stuff.
Yeah, it's coming. New Year's going to be here soon.
It's going to be here soon. Weeks. We do appreciate our folks coming out for our shows every week on Wednesdays. It's great.
Speaking of which, we got CBC
we do have a show.
voters in the house.
We do.
CBC voters in the house. What's going on? We got who else is here? I think that's it for right now. We have our usual lurkers out and about there. So
And if
yeah,
you're
we're
on
gonna have.
Instagram, I want to remind everybody, hey, Tom, we got Tom over on Instagram. Want to remind you folks, if you are on Instagram, your comments do not pop up here in StreamYard. I have to manually go over and look at them, which I will be doing, but we will acknowledge your comment. We just can't show them in the show the way we can with some of the other platforms.
Righto. Well, yes, as you said, we do have a show.
We do.
Where that came from. Let's get to the headlines for today, if I can do this right. Bingo. Yes, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Trump administration pulled food assistance from 21 states. Why? Because he's a cruel bastard. That's why. And this lady, wearing the leather jacket, I'm pretty sure she's cruel too. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins. That's her right there. She does. She looks like a Bond villain, doesn't she?
Yeah, among other things.
Oh,
the female villains.
It.
Well, actually, she may be too old to be one of the female villains. And it's not a nice thing for me to say, but it's true.
You're so saucy this time.
I know. I'm saucy and sassy. Deep
it's
snark.
Okay. G. Rowell. That's the kid he likes to scratch. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, as pictured here, has threatened to revoke federal funds from Democratic states, just Democratic states, that are currently fighting in order to surrender data about food assistance recipients. On Tuesday, during the last cabinet meeting of the year, Rollins spoke about the ongoing lawsuit, which pits 21 states and the District of Columbia against the administration of one Donald Stiglstein Trump. I forgot his last name. What's his name? Harold? What's his middle name? Donald John Trump. Oh, yeah, that's John, as in the toilet.
Golden toilet.
The golden toilet, yes. Under Trumpy, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has demanded that states hand over identifying information about recipients who benefit from SNAP. That's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Sometimes called food stamps, SNAP helps low-income households afford groceries. Nearly 41.7 million people relied on the program as of fiscal year 2024, a number that represents nearly 12% of U.S. residents. That's scary. 12% on food stamps, on SNAP. The USDA's order would require states to pass along information like social security numbers, birth dates, and home addresses to federal authorities. That does not sound authoritarian whatsoever.
In the slightest, yeah.
Not one bit. Critics fear that such a data transfer could constitute an invasion of privacy. Oh, you think? You think that's an invasion of privacy? All your secret numbers there going out into the wind? Yeah, that's an invasion of privacy. Rollins, however, told the cabinet meeting that the information was needed to address alleged fraud and protect the American taxpayer. Now, let me just say this real quickly. This is like election fraud in a way. Yes, there is fraud that goes on in all these programs because there's humans involved, and that's just going to happen. It's the level of fraud that is the most important thing, right? So, and just like in elections, you have a lot of people who complain about voter fraud. Like there's, dead people coming out of the woods voting, thousands at a time, right? Which is not happening at all. That's a very minuscule amount of people are fraudulent when it comes to that kind of thing. It's the elections themselves that's fraudulent more often than not. And that's the same in this case here. You can have an agency that does well to help people, but also have flaws of its own too,
right.
So, but that being said, that's not really why they're doing this. They're not doing this to go after fraud, because the fraud, again, like in election voter fraud, is minuscule. We asked for all the states for the first time to turn over their data to the federal government to let the USDA partner with them to root out this fraud, to make sure that those who really need food stamps are getting them, she said. Now, I always try to figure out the end game in these things, right? It's like, why do they need all these people's data for? What would you need 41.7 million people's data, their social security, their date of birth, that
Who's going
really
to comb
private
through that? Who's going to?
Yeah, I mean, is it just going to sit in a database for later use in case they need to, you become some sort of, leftist fringe person who's trying to overthrow the government? Is it one of those kind of deals? I don't understand why they have to have all this data, right?
No,
Why unless the claim of fraud here is to accumulate with other claims of fraud in other departments to spearhead some sort of broader thing of maybe changing the government to a more fascist type of government.
Well, I think that if you want to look at it this way, it's a way, first of all, to harass people. It's a way to scare people. Maybe some people won't re-enroll, or they'll drop their enrollment because they're afraid, or they don't get the notification or the letter that if they're being asked for additional information. I think there's that factor. I do think that sometimes these crackdowns on these programs are designed to actually kill people. And I just said it, that they actually want people to fall off these programs and then quietly go away to die. And I do think that is the case. But I think this is also performative for the so-called American taxpayer to say, hey, look, we're protecting you. Your government is protecting you against these miscreants and layabouts and parasites who are taking all your tax money and buying food with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It just seems like it's another
placating. It's placating frustrated people.
Yeah, controlling them using their fears and frustrations. And this is just another way of dangling this, oh, look, now we could take away your food, I mean, I know, yeah, you said it, that it's designed to kill people. I mean, I couldn't find the lie in there, because when you take away programs that people desperately need, when all their other options have been exhausted, and you take away that last option that they have, of course, they've got nothing left, right?
It's like this with insurance companies, insurers, hospitals, medical bill collectors. They make it harder and harder for people to appeal decisions, to provide information, to make corrections. And when you're dealing with people who are, say, in the case of health insurers, sick or disabled, eventually they may not have the ability to fight this. They may not have the strength or the resources, the physical resources to fight these things. And I think the same is true with programs like SNAP. They're just hoping that some of these people are going to go away. And because a person who is qualifying for SNAP may not have a whole lot of financial resources. They may be working multiple jobs. They may themselves be sick. Many of the people who are on SNAP are children, the elderly, and people with disabilities. Again, they may not have the resources to keep calling back or visiting offices, getting on public transit. They don't have it. And they're looking at the most vulnerable people and getting and figuring that eventually we'll wear them down and they will go away. It is punching down. You'll also notice that in the reporting, they will talk about the millions of people who rely on the SNAP program. Keep in mind that SNAP benefits can be as low as, I want to say, $13 a month. So when they talk about relying on it, they're making it sound like these folks are using this program to provide their daily menus. That is often not the case. They're often getting a relatively small amount of money that can, maybe cover some gap, but $13 does not buy you much in groceries these days.
Yeah.
Unless you really know how to shop. And then still, you're not going to be able to feed yourself for that long. You can buy rice and beans and that'll hold you for a bit, but it's not a lot of money. So when they use a term like rely, I really wish they wouldn't use, the media would not use that term and instead could say enrolled, because rely makes it sound to me like SNAP is providing most of the food for this individual or this family, when in many cases that is not what's happening at all. It's supplementary.
So they asked for the first time to turn over the states to turn over their data. 29 states said yes, not surprisingly, the red states, and that's where all of the data about fraud comes from. Rollins continues. But 21 states, including California, New York, and Minnesota, the blue states, continue to say no. As a result, those Democratic-leaning states would no longer be receiving federal support for their SNAP recipients, according to Rollins. So as of next week, we have begun and will begin to stop moving federal funds into those states until they comply. Yes, this is some partisan hackery, scare tactics. They just took a shellacking in the elections this past November. The Republicans did, and I think they're running scared, and they're trying to gin up the base, because the base is pretty much divided right now, thanks to Epstein and a little country over in the Middle East. You know the one. It's unclear whether Rollins will be able to carry out her threat. In September, a U.S. District Court in Northern California issued a temporary restraining order preventing the federal government from enforcing its data request. In October, another hearing was held on the issue, and a temporary injunction was again granted. Let's be crystal clear. The president is trying to hijack a nutrition program to fuel his mass surveillance agenda. California's Attorney General Rob Bonta, a Democrat, said in a statement after the October ruling, "We won't let it happen, not on our watch, not in our communities." Tuesday's announcement that the states involved in the lawsuit would see a suspension of federal SNAP funds was met with outrage by some top Democratic leaders, including New York Governor Kathy Hochul. The Democrats on the House Agriculture Committee also released a statement denouncing the Trump administration's plan, saying yet again Trump and Rollins are illegally threatening to withhold federal dollars. SNAP has one of the lowest fraud rates of any government program, but Trump continues to weaponize hunger. That's right. Yeah, that's basically what he's doing there. He's weaponizing hunger.
Yeah.
And has been doing so this whole time with the SNAP, toying with people with the SNAP program like this.
And tormenting them. Because if you don't know if you're going to be able to feed your family or yourself, and that goes up and down every day, that wears on you. Again, it's my thing. I think they want to wear people down so they go away.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't. And if it does, it's going to see some serious legal blowback for sure. Yeah. As has most of Trump and his entourage of idiots around him have experience with. They'll do these dumb things they know won't pass muster. Yeah. And then they'll go in. Their lawyers will go into these lawsuits with these poor people who have to waste their time and file these lawsuits because of Trump's ignorant ideas about things, including poor people, especially about poor people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you know,
your enemy is not the lady down the street, who is ill and trying to care for her mother and her daughter's 2 kids, and who needs help with groceries every month. She's not your enemy, folks.
No.
Oh, and a big hello to Steve Wolfbrand, who's on Facebook. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, what's up, Steve? Good to see you. Steve Wolfbrand. Steve, I always say Steve has a great radio name.
He does.
Like Steve Wolfbrand in the afternoons live. Yeah, see, get that little ballsy. Yeah. That's one of the things I loved about radio, when you get to have fun with your voice like that.
Oh, yeah.
We always say somebody who could do like that really deep voice, who could do those voiceovers. We always said he had like balls in his throat, that he was just like, blah, 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 blah. You're like, wow, what the hell? What level of hell did you come from, Mr. Voiceover Man? Yeah, but I love those guys. Some of those guys are just some of the nicest people you ever want to meet.
They are.
Yeah. And,
radio folks are the best.
Yeah. And a lot of times you see you hear their radio voice and then you see their radio face and you're like, whoa, not that it's ugly. It's just that it's
No, you
sometimes
can't
it just
tell.
doesn't match,
No,
you know?
voices and people or bodies, their faces. I mean,
Yeah.
or even sometimes their personalities.
See, when I was on radio, people thought I was a sweet little girl, but then they'd see the 6'2" guy and they go, no, that is
one bad hombre.
I was sniffing paint. Anyway, speaking of chemicals that you probably shouldn't get near your nose or anywhere near you, period. Roundup. You ever remember, Roundup?
I remember Roundup.
The weed causes weeds and people to get cancer. I think that's the thing. Allegedly, don't sue us. Trump Department of Justice sides with Roundup manufacturer. Shocking, I know, right? Over cancer victims in a Supreme Court case. The Trump administration is pushing for the U.S. Supreme Court to shield the manufacturer of Roundup from thousands of state lawsuits alleging that its widely used herbicide product causes cancer. This is shades of the tobacco industry. Remember they were saying like, nah, cigarettes is fine. See, I'm having one right now. I don't even have to smoke it. I just eat it. See, nothing's fine. Everything's fine. And then they say, oh, no, yeah, well, you're right. We knew it caused cancer. Sorry. That's what this seems like to me. Like, this is the same thing. So on Monday, U.S. Solicitor General D. John Sauer recommended that the High Court agree to hear a challenge to a Missouri jury's verdict in 2023 that awarded $1.25 million to a man named John Durnell, who claimed that the product caused him to develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Bayer, the agribusiness giant that purchased the manufacturer of Roundup, the agribusiness giant Monsanto, in 2018, immediately challenged the verdict. In 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer classified glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, as probably carcinogenic to humans based on limited evidence. Probably. That evidence became less limited in 2019 when a prominent meta-analysis by a team of environmental health researchers found that people exposed to glyphosate at the highest levels had a 41% higher risk of developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma than those who weren't. There are nearly 4,500 Roundup claims currently pending in federal court, and at least 24 cases have gone to trial since October 2023. They make up just a fraction of the more than 170,000 claims filed already. According to Bloomberg, Bayer has already been forced to pay out more than $10 billion in verdicts and settlements over the product, which has caused a massive drain on the company's stock price. Now, I would say like a product that's giving you that much trouble, you should probably stop making it, because it seems like it's literally costing you billions of dollars to do that. So why would you just keep fighting to produce this product that obviously causes cancer?
You can make a lot of money with it.
Bing, bing,
You're making more money than you're losing.
I mean, if you do Occam's razor on this, it always comes down to money, right?
Somebody ran the numbers.
Yeah.
But somebody keeps running the numbers.
But that would mean that people are still buying this Roundup, right? So are these people not being informed of the effects that Roundup has?
It probably works. It probably does with the people who are buying it. It's working for them. And maybe they're buying it because they're not being held liable for using it.
Yeah. And it works.
And it works.
And just happens to be a side effect of, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. What's up? We are Ronan. Bum, 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 bum. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Solidarity to you too. So yeah, I'm just okay. So yeah, that makes sense. So you would continue to buy it, But then again, you're running the risk of poisoning yourself too, as someone who uses it too. That's another thing that I don't get. It's like you're literally going against your better interests when it comes to this kind of stuff. So according to Bloomberg, Bayer has already been forced to pay out $10 billion, and what was said was an effort to manage litigation risk and not because of any safety concerns. Yes, manage litigation risk. That's what it's all about. Bayer removed.
That should not be a phrase, by the way. Manage litigation risk.
Yeah. I mean, it is, but it sounds
manage litigation risk.
Yeah, it's like you need to consider how many times you're going to court, basically. Either you initiating it or someone else. But yeah, so they're only worried about the litigation risk, not the safety concerns. So Bayer removed glyphosate-based herbicides from the residential market in 2023, switching to formulas that rely on alternative active ingredients. I wonder what those are. Maybe the same thing that's in the Advent calendar I had, the tears of children and the thing. That didn't stop the lawsuits from coming, though. Durnell's victory was the first successful case brought against Bayer outside California, the only state that labels the product as carcinogenic. That in Missouri opened the floodgates in other states, and plaintiffs subsequently won sizable payouts in Georgia and Pennsylvania. But now the Trump administration is trying to help the economy. Yeah, he's not trying to do that. They're trying to help the company skirt further accountability. Oh, look at Trumpy, the president of the United States, stepping into a private business thing. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
I know, right? That's kind of crazy. Sauer, who is tasked with arguing for the government in nearly every Supreme Court case, filed a 24-page brief stating that there is a lack of clarity on whether states have the authority to determine whether Bayer and Monsanto violated the law by failing to warn customers about potential cancer risks from Roundup. And again, that goes back to the cigarette thing, right? I mean, shouldn't they do the same thing? Have like risk labels and stuff like that on their stuff?
One would think. Well, the cigarette industry does have that. But Roundup should have it, and I mean, I think people should be informed. You know, you could, and it's become easier and easier for this stuff to be traced. You know, blockchain allows for that to happen. You can really trace something, a product, to where it's from and what was used on it. All of this could be made available to people, and ought to be, in my view.
Yeah, I mean. It's just, I mean, I thought the Roundup thing was like an early 2000s thing. I thought we were done with that, and it just always seems to keep, like a weed, just keep popping up. You pull it, and then it just keeps popping up, right?
Maybe Uncle Warren.
Maybe that's appropriate. Hey,
with our next story.
Hang on a second.
We do have our guest. He's in
he can wait. He's all right.
We got one more story about pulling things and them popping up. So
yeah, so let's go ahead and bring him in.
Okay, we'll bring Jose.
What's up, Jose?
You're live.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me on. Uncle Warren, Auntie Lainey, thanks so much for having me on.
Always so good to see you, friend. It's always so good. It was great when I was in Chicago about a month or so ago, and we all got to hang out. That was some fun times.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one went to jail, unfortunately. I was very disappointed. I thought we were.
We were not at our best. We're not. It was not our A game. Nobody ended up in the Who's Gal.
The Who's Gal. Yeah, yes. Yeah. So, what's going on with you, man? Fill people and give people your. I like to call it the Marvel origin story, right? So, I mean, what are you doing here as an activist in Chicago, and what are you seeing around here?
Thanks for that tee up. Well, I'm here today just as a Chicago lifelong resident, someone that grew up in Little Village. But I've been part of a lot of the activists like ARCs in Chicago. And so has my family, so have people that I've known. Me, myself, I was part of like the independent political organization groups and movements, the 22nd Ward IPO. I participated in the 12th Ward IPO. I was a very active member in the 2010s, the 25th Ward IPO, one of its itinerations I was a part of. I've been part of the Chicago Democratic Socialists of America. I've organized events and helped their electoral work. And I work with other candidates, with other groups like the Justice Democrats, a brand new Congress, just as a volunteer, and trying to plug that into Chicago's media system, into how it impacts local politics. So lately, a lot of people have been asking me about moves that happen in the 4th Congressional District around Jesus Garcia's succession plan for Congress. And I just thought, if people want to talk about it, there's just a lot of interesting facts to share out.
Jose, could you tell people, Chuy Garcia, he's obviously based in Chicago. He had a credible run for mayor some years back, and then became a U.S. representative. And he recently retired. So, but there's been a bit of a kerfuffle about this, including some criticism even within his own party. So could you talk a little bit about him and what happened here, and what are the facts?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think people really associate Chuy with his run for mayor in 2015. That's kind of when he broke into like more mainstream media news. But he was already known in Little Village. He was part of when he was younger than like when I was an activist, like he was part of the Harold Washington coalition campaign in the 80s. So he was really instrumental in building that coalition. Him and Luis Gutierrez, who was the original congressman of the 4th District. So Chuy Garcia famously challenged Ron Emanuel, which is something you just don't do in Chicago, like challenge the machine mayor.
Yeah.
But he did it for the Chicago Teachers Union, specifically as a favor to Karen Lewis, who couldn't do it because she had contracted brain cancer. Okay. He made it into the runoff, which has never happened in like a mayoral election, since I've been in Chicago. But then he lost the runoff, and we can talk more about that loss, but that teed him up to be a figure that the more mainstream machine Democrats, and I want to associate Michael Madigan and these machinations. Michael Madigan orchestrated the pass-off between Luis Gutierrez to Chuy Garcia because he saw that he was a formidable politician, and he also saw that his progressive streaks and bona fides were, unimpeachable, and the machine needed a little bit of that. And Chuy had already had a long-standing, organization of Enlace, his own run for Cook County commissioner. He had been a state Senate before that. He was an alderman before that. So he had his own interest in like, how can I use this moment for my career and, machinations. And so his tee off right now seems in keeping with like his arc in Chicago, but it got him condemned by the whole U.S. Congress. So it's kind of a harsh way to go. And I think it's also condemnation on just the Chicago machine way of doing things.
So specifically, the accusation here is that he basically handpicked his successor and put things together to make it so that she was going to be the one to take his place. Can you describe the process? Let us know what happened there.
Yeah. So I try to really hone in on how many signatures Patty Garcia was able to fall into the deadline for November 3rd.
And she was the person who succeeded. Yeah.
Yes. So Chuy Garcia had a number of signatures that he collected because he had declared that he was running for re-election. And on the day before on the day of the deadline, he announced that he will not run for re-election, that he will retire after this term, basically freeing up, the field. But since it's the deadline, like, if he had done this way earlier, people could have prepared and done things. And, he kind of made it so that no one from within his camp or orbiting, would want to challenge, the things that he had been building. And then what had happened was that people that had signed for his signatures were all ready then to transfer their signatures, sign directly for his chief of staff, who declared and was ready to run, and then filed that day. So it's all perfectly legal, which is something Chuy grew up hearing from the Chicago machine a lot and was supposed to fight against. So, but it's people have strong feelings about it.
And should be noted that Patty Garcia is not related to Chuy Garcia. They have a common last name. But
thank you. Yes.
I was going to ask who's making the most noise against him doing this?
Thanks. That is the interesting question that I hope that us kind of poking at the story a little bit will clarify. People want to say that it's people that are more progressive and left to him that are especially mad. I think people that are more left to him are mad about the strategy for the whole of the progressive leftist movement. But people that want to bandwagon with what Congress did and admonish his career, I think also have their own kind of interest in breaking apart a little bit of his career's reputation. So it's hard to say, but it's definitely people that, are power hungry. I would say they smell blood in the water. And
imagine that.
Yeah, and I do think that, there's a lot of things that can be said. Like Patty Garcia is not related to Chuy Garcia, but the last name similarity might even work on like low information voters that, are just voting for another Garcia or, don't mind that, or, people don't know. But I do think that because of the history of the 4th Congressional District and really the Chicago machine's hand in it, a lot of things were outside of Chuy's control, even while he was in Congress. I think people on the ground also were hoping that he did more while ICE was in town. He kind of stuck to trying to enter Broadview, which was good. Other Congress people weren't doing that, but there was a whole lot going on. He also had, his personal tragedy in his family. His wife is also ill. He's also having a health setback. So he slowed down, this year, and, he wants to own up to that. But at the end of the day, he got the seat in Congress because Michael Madigan saw corruption charges coming for the Democratic machine of Illinois and wanted to put more progressive, more community-centered faces in front of it. But there's still forces that are loyal to that machinations of Michael Madigan, like Michael Sachs, who was implicated in some of the corruption charges that that Madigan was accused of and found guilty of. And now he's coming up as a name that the mayor of Chicago is saying is pivotal in sabotaging his budget. I would think to control who becomes the next mayor of Chicago. So, those are real estate interests that are bigger than Chuy Garcia. I feel like he just kind of accepted, the powers that be. And but he also demonstrated it so openly to the national public that I think that a lot of clarification is warranted on the ground.
Indeed. And he does have a bit of a legacy as far as going kind of teaming up with the squad in Congress. But let's give a little background on basically just kind of like a TLDR on some of the things Garcia's done since he's been in Congress and what he's done with the squad in particular?
Yeah, I think that people more plugged in than me will better clarify, like the nuances. But overall, he's kind of stuck to his middle of the road progressive machinery role in the city to like the national Congress. He's trying to plug in the squad with like more mainstream like unions. I think that he was particularly favored to trying to like culturally impact the Teamsters with the squad's messaging and policies. The Teamsters being kind of like a conservative cultural engine. So like Chuy played a role in trying to also get them more acquainted with like the history from like the 80s and like the 90s and those like neoliberal shifts, but that he kind of adapted to himself. So some people might criticize that he brought the squad more to the center. I think that he kept them in a place where they can do things to still advocate for Medicare for all, to abolish ICE. I do think that he was kind of one of the forces that went from like abolish the police to defund the police. So he, like his camp kind of plays with those nuances, but I think that he also added infrastructure to, newly elected Congress people, like Chuy's very close to like ICER, that was very pivotal to pushing back against ICE. I think that, like working with Ocasio-Cortez, with Jamal Bowman before, he lost, Cori Bush that wants to come back. I think that he kind of plays it a little safe when it comes to geopolitics. People from like Mexico Morena, more leftist camp, would like to see him be more front and center about those conversations, those histories, those realities. But he does support like Palestine and Palestinian liberation, which is rare in the U.S. and in the Chicago area. We need more people stumping on that. I also think that his district originally agitated him to do that. It has since kind of been changed to be a little bit more socially conservative. So I don't know how, he's adapting to all that. And I think that that's what he provided to the squad, and some kind of that sage advice.
Well, I guess where I was going with that is the fact that maybe since his time in Congress, he's kind of grown not very trustworthy of the Democratic Party. So maybe him timing out his retirement wasn't so much to get someone, well, not just solely to get someone in that he trusted, but to keep others that he didn't trust out, right? Like, because he probably knew how the Democratic machine worked. So he said, well, it's in my mind, it just sounds like he said, well, I'm just going to wait till the very last second. And then, but kind of like what Joe Biden did in the presidential race, right? Waited basically till the very last moment. And then there wasn't time for a primary, so they just let Kamala run. Right? Is this a similar situation?
Similar advisors, maybe even.
Oh,
I know, similar strategists. I'm just saying. I mean, is this the new thing now? Is just what the politicians are going to start doing, waiting until the 11th hour, and then especially these ones that have been in for a while or have some popularity to them.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to blow people's minds. Everybody okay?
Yeah, I think that what's leaving a sour taste in some people's mouths is that, all right, whatever his decision was, is that he set it up so that it didn't go back to the people. Now, as you both point out here, sometimes we have political theater where there are some people who are pulling strings behind there, and we have an illusion of the people making the decision. And what may have happened here is that Chuy short-circuited that with his own strings. Do you think that would be a fair possible assessment?
Ooh.
Yeah, I think that it makes his exit kind of distrusting of the political process, and it adds to the cynicism that democracy doesn't work. that he didn't trust his community to have an open process and land someone that would respect the political project he set forth. Even with this sour taste in our mouths, I think people still want to be respectful of what he was able to provide to Little Village. But it is kind of goes against the larger project of what's needed, of promoting people's empowerment. To Warren's point, I also think maybe he just felt he was outgunned and felt, at this point, I have the wisdom and age to just say, no, this is the call. I need people that want to keep the project going and not, make it their own thing from the bottom or like something to sabotage it from the top. Yeah,
because I didn't get like an ego perspective from it. I was thinking of more of it was like, the man's not perfect, but he was trying to protect what he had built. Yeah. And he he didn't think anybody else had the vision that his people did.
I think I think that Illinois and Chicago and Illinois kind of may have a sour taste in their mouths also about what happened with Blago when Obama had to resign from the Senate and go into the presidency. Now, this is a different situation because Chuy is not resigning. I mean, he's just not running for re-election. So it is a different situation here. But, and then Blago was, basically trying to sell the seat, ended up in the pokey. He ended up in the Hoosgow because of this. But so that sort of thing, I think it's when you have a state that is so entrenched in corruption, and it is the way it is with so many, Republicans and Democrats ending up in jail and doing hard time in prison, that it just anything that even hints at a manipulation, people go nuts for. And that's easily played by the operatives over and above everybody. And I do get that. And it is, some people were comparing this and saying, well, there was always the history of putting the wives of legislators in their position if something happened to the legislator. Well, and that may have, with Mary Bono came in for Sonny, that wasn't so much the case. But back in the day, women were doing that because in some cases it took a while to get a new legislator into Washington, because literally they would have to be appointed by the governor. They would have to get on a train and get out there, and it could take a while. It may make sense to put the wife in there, but we're no longer at that point. We have a much simpler, a much more straightforward and effective infrastructure. But again, this is a case where nobody's being replaced. It's a matter of somebody just choosing not to run for re-election. And I think that just unfortunately the optics on this were not good. But as you both point out, Chuy may have felt that he had, he was between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Yeah.
Here on the Undercurrent. Yeah.
Well, and that's the Chicago way. That's how you get Capone. It's he knows, Chuy knows that Chicago ain't nothing but political games. And he's like, all right, if this is the only way, that he has no faith in other Democrats. It seems to me. So that's why he did this 11th hour business, to protect, not just his vision, but those around him that have helped him with that vision too. So I don't know, man, good on him. If it's legal, then it's like, that's one of those things where you just say, oh, well, to go back and look at the laws, then, one of those things. But in this case, that's what you have to do, unfortunately. So, can you stick around with us, Jose? Do you have to be Batman somewhere?
No, I can hang out for a little bit.
Okay.
Jose, you got an event coming up, don't you?
Yeah. Yep. You want to tell us about that?
Tell us about it.
Thank you so much for that. I was part of the Chicago Democratic Socialists of America's electoral working group, and we are hosting a forum this Friday for the Illinois 9th Congressional District. We have 4 confirmed guests. We have, I don't want to get anyone's name wrong, so I'm just going to say, please check out our event, check out the poster. We have 4 confirmed candidates, and we're also going to live stream it on a channel that Lainey and I worked on before, and we're trying to see if we can do work on it again. Just cover these candidate forums and bring information to the people so that people can make their own decisions. On Chicago Corner, we'll be live streaming this on Friday from 7:30 to from 7 to 8:30.
Jose, is this going to event? This is open to the public, or is it? Can people come if they're local? Can they come?
Yes, please sign up at the Chicago DSA website. On our event page, you'll find the RSVP link, and most definitely, it is open to the public. We do reserve the right to bounce people that are just there to agitate and be from Fox News or something. But please come out to Sketchbook. It's a brewery in Skokie. It's we're going to be in the backspace. It's an amazing venue, and the owners have been so great during COVID to just host mutual aid stuff, and then during the ice raids host know your rights stuff. So we're very grateful to be hosting this event, this space. Please come out and just have a beer, if anything.
Okay, I'm looking here on the events page. I want to share it, and I'm not seeing it. It's okay. Where might this be?
And the calendar of Chicago DSA.
Yeah.
Are you looking for the DSA? Chicago DSA?
I'm looking for the Chicago. I have the website where I'm not finding. I'm looking in the events so that people can sign up, and I'm not seeing it.
You're not seeing the RSVP?
No.
Okay.
What day is it again?
Friday, December 5th.
And it's going to be streamed on Chicago Corner at 7 p.m. The link is in the chat, and you can go ahead and see it. I'm just trying to, if people wanted to sign up to RSVP for the event, I'm just not seeing a sign up for it on the DSA website.
Yeah, maybe if you could find the website, you could put it in our in the chat thing, and we'll put it up here for
just do that, and we'll get that going, because we absolutely want to support y'all here. Oh, and here is Willie Bragg in the house.
That's right, the one, the only Willie Bragg. How you doing, Willie? Good to see you. Willie's up in Hill Country there. No, he isn't. Where is he? He's near Raleigh, North Carolina, but he's near Mount Pilot. That looks like something. We got more news stuff here.
Oh yeah, we do have this, and yeah, I would love to get your perspective on this, Jose. This is just freaking awesome.
Yeah, so we have this. We have very fun little segments here. This one, of course, is our recurring tide, and this one is basically where we take a look back at some older stories and see if there's any progress and see what's up, that kind of thing. So lawmakers introduce legislation to block collusive rental pricing software.
Oh, we're not going to talk about the IRS agents?
Oh, well, yeah, it was kind of a funny one, so I was going to save that towards the end. But
okay, we can save that for the end. We can do it. Yeah, don't worry about it. So, yeah, and this is actually, Chuy Garcia has been a part of this, actually. This is legislation that is going to make it, that would prevent it being harder for people to rent properties. But you go ahead, Uncle Warren.
Well, I was just going to set up the story here, and you can tell us more about it. So U.S. lawmakers are taking fresh aim at the use of algorithm-driven pricing tools in the rental housing market, unveiling a new federal proposal intended to block software-enabled coordination among landlords. According to a statement from Senator Peter Welch of Vermont, the End Rent Fixing Act seeks to outlaw practices that allow property owners to share sensitive pricing information and collectively raise rents, a trend he said has worsened affordability challenges nationwide. So you want to tell us a little bit more about that, Lainey?
Yeah, so what apparently is going on, I mean, it is as if it's not already very difficult to find decent rental housing at a price that people can afford. There apparently have been some landlords that are using software to publish their rental prices and basically collude to raise the rental prices in various communities. This is not about necessarily what the individual landlord needs to effectively to manage the property. This is, hey, what can we get? And the landowners, the property owners are getting together to collude on prices, rental prices, making it just that much more difficult for people to get affordable housing. Now, make no mistake, I believe that there are a lot of things that need to be done to make housing more accessible. And these run from more rental housing, more housing being built. And, there could be tax benefits. There are a bunch of different things that could be incentivize multi-unit housing, and of course, support for the infrastructure to support greater numbers of people living in a smaller area. The idea of actual cooperative housing cooperatives that aren't just condos in disguise, where people actually have a stake in their housing. We could do a lot more to make housing more accessible, more affordable. We could look at landlord-tenant laws that basically that favor bad actors on either side of the contract, and make people very, very wary of renting to certain groups of people, while also making it hard for people who may have the cash to rent but may have some issues in their past to be able to get that housing. So this is just one more tool that property owners are using to raise rents and get as much as they possibly can out of what they own, colluding together to do this, leaving whole groups of people behind. And make no mistake, one problem, and we can talk about things like people not having health insurance or having to fight health insurance and quietly dying or just resigning themselves to being in pain or being sick. We can talk about people who lose their SNAP benefit and, again, resign themselves to either dying or going to food banks. Housing is a different matter. When people are not housed, you've got major problems. These are far more significant problems, and that creeps into the commons. And I can speak about Chicago, particularly because that's where I most recently lived, where you have whole swaths of public land, including parks, under viaducts, sidewalks, where people are living in tents. And yes, there are tent cities in Chicago, and there have been for a while now, because of very mismanaged housing policies. And so, and because people cannot afford a place to live, and even if they could afford it, because of various restrictions, they can't get into that housing because of something about their past or their employment, or their previous interactions with landlords. So we've got a housing problem in this country. Allowing the landlords to collude on pricing, and by the way, the government does get involved with price collusion all the time. This is something that is regularly dealt with the federal government, and tries to put a stop to it. This is an attempt to keep landlords from doing this. And I know that Chuy Garcia has been a part of this particular initiative.
That's interesting. There's a ban on rent control in the state of Illinois. And for a while now, we've been trying to lift that ban statewide. And we've been hoping that we could get more traction at the state level. Chuy Garcia is someone that's really good at the street level, knowing that's a big threat. Also people don't, the commons get affected by a lot of homeless, tent cities. So he's also someone that works to, accommodate that in neater spaces. And then there's the home church element of trying to provide, for people at that level. But the cities, like policies, to go back to like the forces that he's surrendering to, are run by real estate interests, like urban centers. I studied urban planning and policy at UIC. Sure. Like they're all developed on real estate schemes, essentially, and they're all developed since ancient Mesopotamia, according to one professor, to capture labor. They're not here for you to have for everyone to have a good life. They're here for the imperial core to have a good life. And the rest of the residents should be lucky just to be able to live, in shelter, with food, with water. And you're captured labor. That is how an urban center is supposed to work. So Chuy also studied urban planning and policy. He knows this, so going for big ticket items, like lifting the ban on rent control was kind of where we were at in the 2010s. I'm glad that Chuy's lead on this with the AI manipulation, because that's a concern everywhere. But when it gets to housing, that's how you get into really bad gentrification and into a lot of the segregation issues that, Chicago mastered during the American century.
And you get the bedroom communities where people, they're on the outskirts, they may be hard to get to. And because they're so far away, people, go back there to sleep and eat, and then they have to drive back, and they may have commutes of hours. So there's not a lot of stuff that develops in those communities. There's not a lot of amenities that make those communities livable. And it doesn't, wow. And you're right. It captures labor. It attracts labor. It's like fly paper, but you're attracting labor, and then they keep them stuck because that's where the jobs are. You stick, and eventually bleeds the life out of these people because they can't move. I mean, they're stuck getting their labor there. They can't go anywhere else to work, and they're worn out.
Yep.
And that's a really, really fascinating perspective on this. And I'd love to sit down with you. Maybe we can have a conversation some evening. Maybe do it on the show. I have a special on the show to talk about rent control, because I have some real concerns about rent control. Some of the areas that in the country that do have rent control have some of the highest rents out there. I would like to see more. I'd like to see a more flattening of the ownership of housing, where it's, and I'm not talking about somebody who's renting out an attic apartment or something like that. I'm talking about when people make their living with rental housing, and they take up a whole area, and then they're manipulating the prices and colluding to manipulate the prices. Somehow that doesn't work well for me. I like the idea of cooperative housing, or if there's going to be rental housing, rental within a cooperative situation where not one person is benefiting. But I would love to talk more about that at some point, Jose.
Yeah, and it's not just housing too. It's education. Education's being affected too right now, and of course, one unlikely source you wouldn't think would have an effect on American education would be ICE. But
imagine that.
Yes, here we are. Student absences spiked in California. Test scores fell in Florida amid surge in U.S. immigration enforcement. So just a little bit of context here. So 2 new studies provide a first look at how school children in 2 of America's largest states have been affected by the immigration crackdown Trump ordered after taking office in January. Both show student performance fell during the spring semester in parts of California and Florida as authorities began enforcing federal immigration laws much more aggressively than in prior years. The studies also reveal a dynamic many news stories overlooked. The surge in immigration raids and arrests has consequences for various student groups, not just unauthorized children or children whose parents are not authorized to be in the U.S. This is much broader than that, says economist David Figlio, who co-wrote one of the papers. The first paper, published November 4th in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, demonstrates that student absences spiked in Southern California after the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol launched Operation Return to Sender. Really? They're using an Elvis song? Whatever. At the beginning of the year, federal officials targeted California's Central Valley starting January 7th, the day after Congress certified the results of Trump's presidential election win. Many parents in the area, a major hub for agriculture and food processing, kept their kids home from school. Yeah. So Stanford University education professor Thomas D., who conducted the first study, estimates that students in the 5 Central Valley counties he examined missed an estimated 22% more days of school during the spring semester of 2025 than they had in the spring semester of 24 and 23. Younger kids were absent most often. For example, the average number of days that schools reported pre-kindergarten students as being absent rose an estimated 35%. And what that could be attributed to is if they're pre-kindergarten, that means they're going to be attached to that parent that's not that, you know, that may be, you know, keeping out of sight as well, you know, which is very, very disturbing. There was a second paper, a working paper, the National Bureau of Economic Research released on November 10th. It offers a detailed look at student performance in Florida. So you have a lot of kids who are not attending classes in California, and then you go to Florida. It examines test scores, there's attendance and discipline across grade levels in an unidentified county that researchers described as large, urban, and home to one of the nation's 10 biggest school districts. Okay, so you can narrow it down there. So a main takeaway of that analysis, test scores dropped among middle and high school students who speak Spanish at home, the vast majority of whom are U.S. citizens. That includes children whose families are from Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory where U.S. citizenship is granted at birth, says Figlio, who co-authored the working paper with economist Umut Ozik. That ICE is you don't think about these kind of effects, right? You think about it as a broad generalization, but specifically with like test scores and kids skipping school, you know, it makes sense though.
Well, you know, I've been talking about this since I was on HLM doing Civically Minded, and I've spoken about it on this very show, the issue of what happened during COVID, during the lockdowns, where a lot of kids just fell off, you know, did not go to school. They were talking about nine-year-old dropouts. I think it was in Florida, that they couldn't find these kids. That the kids, you know, nobody was sending out truancy officers. A lot of these kids were supposed to be doing online learning in homes that had poor or no internet, or did not necessarily have the products, the computers available, and they just simply dropped off, and that this was a bill that was going to start coming due probably in 10 years or less. And now we got this happening. This is another wave of kids not getting an education, where you're going to have children. And I'm not even just talking about the reading, writing, and arithmetic here. You know, this is the one time for some kids, the one possibility for them to be in school, getting nourishing meals during the day, getting supervision, but are also being identified for perhaps disabilities or being screened for disabilities. And you've got kids who might have dyslexia or other learning disabilities, where this is their one shot at getting an intervention. And if they never return to school, or they return and the situation is so bad that the school just keeps promoting these kids out, you're going to have, again, a problem of young people who need to enter the job market and who are lacking basic skills, something that might have been remedied had they actually been going to school. Jose, you know, you're in the education system. I know you work within the education system. What do you think?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll work on my audio, but I appreciate you teeing up this story. It's you know, it's definitely impacting schools in Chicago and attendance in Chicago. And you know, I worked as a English teacher in South Korea. I got to see their education system, you know, as how involved it was. They treated it like those poor kids were at school from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., some of them till 10 p.m., 6 days a week. So when Ronnie Manuel is talking about failing U.S. scores, he's talking about it in that context of like, we need to be overworking our teachers and students, I feel. Whereas they look at the American model and they really value that you promote the student's self-esteem and you try to find unique skills sets in them and something that will help them just succeed at life. I feel like, you know, these ICE raids are targeted towards a specific population of people to dissuade them from making life in urban centers that way. Like, you know, the imperial core of the city doesn't need public schools. You know, it's a social flex more than it is a need to them. They have private schools, they could get educated, you know, by the best private teachers, by a human teacher. Those kids will get taught by not an AI laptop. But the whole notion of the public education system as a public good is being challenged, I feel. You know, and has always been challenged, I think. But I, you know, these situations aren't new where like students are dealing with trauma at home. The war on drugs and has always been a problem in Chicago since I've been here. You know, and that sleeping into poor, you know, outcomes in academics and graduation rates. You know, we have one of the only and largest juvenile detention centers in the nation here in Chicago, because we did try to just arrest our problem, you know, as a solution to all of this. We've tried that. And ICE is like the culmination of those efforts. But to my earlier point about the city, you know, the imperial core wants the city to be an engine to build capital for itself. It doesn't want it to be a village for just a lowly worker to make life for themselves and their families. And if they can break the Chicago school system, it'll end up looking a lot more like LA and New York and New York City that are already primed for like an AI tech takeover. And I do think that's where they want to take education. So ICE targeting, you know, like the Midway area and the school areas and targeting the schools of Latino neighborhoods, I think it is to break the very people that see the valuable need and good that is in public education right now. So, sorry, I'll stop there.
Yeah. Uncle Warren?
Well, yeah, and that you're going to see more and more of these kind of like unintended consequences, or not necessarily unintended, more like unexpected, right? You think of these things as kind of cut and dry, but then it just as it goes on, there's more layers to it. And you know, you were talking about these kids in Florida whose scores are down. You know, these kids are so immersed in this new media. I say new media, but it's been around for a while, right? You know, like with the social media and stuff like that. So, which brings us to our next segment here, the press pool, and a lost generation of news consumers who, you know, shows how teenagers dislike new media. How teenagers dislike the news media. I'm sorry, not new media.
News media, yeah.
Yeah. Or even new news media, maybe. I don't know. They don't like anything. They just yell, and then I just sit here and get pummeled with cans. Anyway, that's just a story for another day. So Kat Murphy, that's her real name? Okay. A college student has wanted to be a journalist since she was 11. Many of her friends don't understand why. When they engage with the news, if they do, they hear a cacophony of voices. They don't know who to believe. Reporters are biased. They make mistakes. Besides, why would you hitch your future to a dying industry? Interesting. There is a lot of commentary. Oh, good for you. Look what you're walking into. You're going to be screaming into the void. You're going to be useless, said Murphy, a 21-year-old graduate student at the University of Maryland's journalism school. She's undeterred, and it's also why she's not surprised by the findings of a study that this fall that documented negative attitudes towards the news media among 13 to 18-year-old Americans. The press rarely fares well in surveys of adults, but it's sobering to see the same disdain among people whose opinion about the world are still forming. Exactly. Well, their opinions of the world, and they have their opinions of the media already. too, because there's more and more voices now that are proclaiming so much hypocrisy and propaganda in our mainstream media. And especially when you do the old classic follow the money trail and you find out who's really behind your mainstream media. These kids ain't being fooled, right? I mean, a lot of the older people were, but these kids, they ain't about getting fooled. They are not about that life. So asked by the News Literacy Project for one word to describe today's news media, 84% of teens responded with something negative: biased, crazy, boring, fake, bad, depressing, confusing, scary. That's also what people wrote in my high school yearbook, too. They were just very bad people. I don't even know I went to that school. About half the teens surveyed believe journalists give advertisers special treatment. More or less. Make up details such as quotes or pay or do favors for sources always or almost always or often. And about 6 in 10 say journalists regularly take photos and videos out of context. 1/3 or less believe that reporters correct errors when they happen, confirm facts before reporting them. Only 1/3. Gather information from multiple sources or cover stories that help protect the public interest. At least often, practices ingrained in the DNA of reputable journalists. And that's the thing, like here, okay, so you also have to remember, what is the definition of journalism to these kids?
Yeah.
Right? You know,
they're saying an influencer. I mean, they may be conflating an influencer. And an influencer who, by the way, and influencers typically make their money either from doing well on third-party platforms. And there's only a handful of influencers who are actually making a living at this, by the way. Most content creators make pennies, if anything. But also they do collabs, and they do collabs with local restaurants and affiliate programs and that sort of thing. And that's what these kids probably are conflating with the way journalists have usually tried to operate in standard journalistic ethics, which they're not acquainted with. And that's partly the fault of the profession itself. But I think you got a point there, Uncle Warren.
Yeah, it's the nature of where the business has gone to. And it is a business. Don't get it twisted. It used to be a public service. Now it is a straight business. And then when you see and actually this kind of happened before the internet, right? Actually right before the internet, when you had like big names like Rush Limbaugh on the radio, right? You had opinion shows. And a lot of people were conflating those with news shows. And it's like, this guy's giving you his opinion on things, but it's not exactly like factual.
And in the radio industry, by the way, I mean, when you ask about formats, news and talk are two separate formats. Sometimes they're created. You'll have a news talk station where it focuses on news and talk, but there's absolutely a marker between and what is news and what is talk.
Yeah, and it's a really blurry line today because like you said, these influencers, right? And it's not just TikTok that you have your political influencers too, your people who may be cheerleading for certain parties or for certain ideals, or maybe backed by certain rich individuals or whatever. There's a lot to take in. Whereas when we were coming up, journalism was who, what, where, when, why. You ask those questions and you get both sides of the story, right? And then, but also when I was a news producer, you had the mantra of if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
Right. Which in some cases, if there's a lot of blood, yes, it's going to lead. But if there's a more important story, but that's the thing. It's like these kids, they don't know what the news is. They don't. And now with AI, with fake video and fake audio, they're not going to know what to believe in probably about 5 years.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think, again, this is a predicament, something that we're not going to just resolve. The one thing that did occur to me when I read this article and became very upset was, this is where local journalism really comes in, because
Mhm.
I went with some of these kids who are offering these, who were polled, and I respect their opinions. If you ask them, do you know a local journalist? Do you know, does your town have a newspaper? And a lot of towns don't anymore. Does your town have a radio station? Some towns have TV, but the newspaper and radio is probably what you're going to be getting these days in a lot of towns. If you're not in a major urban center, do you know any of these folks who are reporting? Okay. And if they don't, or if they do, okay, do you think this person is lying to you or straight up lying to you? I would be interested in hearing their response, because I suspect, although I'm not sure, those who actually know journalists might have a different response to their question about whether they trust journalists. And this may be where, and we've talked about it's business. It has to be business because advertising and sponsorships is how, and subscriptions, which involves marketing, is how the media is funded here. Now, we do have not-for-profit media, but that's its own ball of wax.
Mhm.
We know that NPR is dependent on donations, or in public media. I shouldn't just say, I'm not going to just talk about NPR. Public media and community media is dependent on donations, grants,
Mhm.
that sort of thing, which often come from the moneyed classes and corporations. So nobody is entirely pure here. But I would say, if the issue here is trust, okay, do you trust journalism? Do you trust the media? No. Might you trust an individual journalist? I think that's an easier thing to do, and that may be easier to do at a local level, but it's hard because a lot of local media has been starved
Yeah.
for funds
But
and resources.
and that's why you're starting to see more and more more independent media on places like YouTube and Telegram. Telegram is a little bit more of a, it feels like more of a safe haven for independent journalists there too. I
I
mean,
gotta try them out. I've not tried them out. I gotta try them out.
Jose, have you what is your experience with independent media here, as far as like have you seen a growing number of independent journalists in your journeys?
Well, I keep a book by of articles by Mike Royko at my work
Mike
desk.
Royko.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an old name right there. Wow. But good
Chicago
stuff.
fell apart
definitely.
when he died. When Mike Royko died, the city of Chicago fell apart.
He famously left.
Yeah.
I think he left. Did he leave the Tribune for the Sun? He left the Sun Times for the Tribune because of the corporate takeover and the paper
Murdoch
just being driven by ads. And he's like, I don't want to write for that.
He said that Murdoch bought it, and he said this. I remember when it happened back in the 80s, and he said he worked for the Chicago Daily News, and then that closed, and then they had the Sun Times, and when Murdoch took over, he said he had said that no self-respecting dead fish would be wrapped in a Murdoch publication, and he went over to the Trib, and I mean, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's like, and that's what he did, and there were some issues that he had. He was very much a centrist. He was not, but he was very good at poking at power. He was particularly known for poking at Daily.
Yes. The way that he writes about everyday Chicagoans and the way that they experience the daily government. I work right now in servicing local school council, so I like to keep that like on the ground perspective. But I was an English major. I only succeeded in my bachelor's degree, really, but like, my master's in urban planning is still pending. I tried my hand at journalism, and I tried my hand at being an influencer because I had Facebook friends from South Korea and international and Chicago, and for a while there, that gained traction. That's kind of how I ended up linking up with Heartlands Media. And I regularly fed stories and try to help independent news, because I saw how beholden to the money class or corporate class or corporate interest, or like the editorial voices, were people like Rush Limbaugh, like Tucker Carlson. Those were the people that got paid to opine, but not a whole lot of other people that actually have the lived experiences that people are opining about. So I was hoping social media could be used as an independent, communications and media that way. And working with Heartlands Media was an experience in trying to develop that. Now, social media has its own beast. I would say one of the biggest things that made me shut down my Facebook account that was like huge with a lot of like influence was the amount of like Russian bots from India, from China, from Latin America. Like people, social media is the Chicago political media, at a global scale. And it's just what it is, and it's unwieldy and it's a lot, and I had to hide away from it. But I think that like Mike Royko was effective at poking at power by just creating context, showing real lived experience. Independent media can do that. And to your point, Lainey, you have to develop trust for people for you to become a go-to source for people's news. I don't trust what Joe Rogan says, but I know what to expect from how he handles the material. So whenever his name pops up, about having a take and that's kind of trending, I kind of understand that he's dealing with something mainstream and giving his take on that. That is kind of where the ecosystem is at, I think, for social media. I think people like Hassan Piker do similar things. People on the left have a harder traction than the right, but they have to learn how to work together better. I think, you have Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson that were just at war with each other before Charlie Kirk died, now sitting down together. That's not something that you see Heartlands Media do with people from Chicago Corner. So like we don't have the interest that need to be aligned for social media to work are very difficult to create and very easy for saboteurs to poke at.
Yeah.
Right on. So we got this story coming up here now. Just the petty level is just off the chain at this point. With Trump unveils media offender of the week and Hall of Shame on White House website. David Ellison and Barry Weiss run CBS News makes the list. This is should we just go to the list? Is there a
this
list?
Is just, I mean, good Lord, what's going on here?
Wait, is this part of it?
Yeah, it's part of the list. Yeah, he's got a hard on for Kelly. So,
oh yeah, so let's.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
Seditious orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
The president has never given an illegal order. These people know.
Our laws are clear.
He has never given an
White
illegal
House now
order.
has a media offenders list. They have a list. They got a list of media offenders, people who have offended, media outlets that have offended the White House and its administration. Now, look, this to me is really starting to poke at the First Amendment. People will constantly say the First Amendment allows you to not suffer political persecution or government interference with your speech. It does not keep you from being held accountable for your speech or suffering social, social disdain or anything like that. Fine. But now we got the White House coming up with lists of media outlets, naming them as seditious, And I mean, if you actually go into their list, they will tell you which story, the name of the media, the journalists, and you give at this point, in addition to, I'm not sure that the White House's the federal resources should be used to do this sort of thing. I'll leave that to the attorneys and the judges. But I got some other questions here. When you what the heck?
AI.
Yeah, it's pretty long. Willie, you check it in the show notes. We got it in the show notes on the Substack. You can go in and have a look at this. It's fairly long, and you're basically giving a bunch of maniacs targets. And make no mistake, when you look at Kelly up there, his wife Gabby Giffords was shot in the head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By a lunatic. And we know that there are people out there who are not well and who are armed.
Yeah.
And who now have a list, and you've just handed them this.
Just a little context about the seditious. These six senators had basically said, if they give you an illegal order, don't follow it.
That's basically the law. That is the law.
Yeah, and that is the law, and now they're trying to paint them as seditious. Personally, I mean, as far as these senators are concerned, who knows what their personal agendas may be, but the fact that that they get called seditious just because they don't want you to follow illegal orders, and that's the thing, they keep throwing everything into the soup. And there's only so many lawsuits you can file to bat these things away. It's just like, as soon as one comes in, you bat it away, and then two come in, and you're sitting there, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The View was just doing a take on this. My mom was watching it before I joined you, and Pete Hegseth himself gave the troops the same advice: don't follow illegal orders, or it'll be on you. And this was when Obama was helping Saudi Arabia in a war against Yemen, and there was a lot of murky things happening with the drone strikes. But Obama was just like, we need Saudi Arabia to play ball, against Russia and against all this. Whatever they want, they get, and what they wanted was awful. So people like Pete Hegseth, people were openly discussing not following illegal orders. Now, Pete Hegseth is walking away from him saying this, putting it on the admiral, because I think that Pete Hegseth was reiterating word for word what he heard from Donald Trump, the president. And he knows that the president's words are what empower him to boss around the entire military apparatus of the American empire. So he used the president's words to direct the admiral to make him look tough. The admiral did an illegal act. And I think Pete Hegseth knows that if he gets subpoenaed in front of Congress, which Hakeem Jeffries has already surrendered to not doing.
Of course.
Yeah. But he knows that he could probably slip up and implicate the president in all this.
Yeah, that's exactly what they don't want to do. It's just like, because it's so easy to slip up and do it, because there's so much mud and slippery mud around to slip in, and that's the thing. And these guys aren't clever enough to cover their entire tracks like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of clowns and clownfish, Megyn Kelly.
This.
You want to set this up here, and we'll play some of this wonderful audio from her.
Yeah, let's hear from Megyn Kelly.
Yeah,
see what she thinks about people in boats.
Yeah, Megyn Kelly on alleged war crimes. Let's watch.
So I really do kind of not only want to see them killed in the water, whether they're on the boat or in the water, but I'd really like to see them suffer. I would like Trump and Hegseth to make it last a long time, so that they lose a limb and bleed out a little. Like, I'm really having a difficult time ginning up sympathy for these guys who 10 seconds earlier almost got taken out by the initial bomb, but because they managed to get ejected, a little too soon, had to be taken out in the water. I realize legally it may make a difference, but truly, Mark, this is a tough case to really gin up the sympathies of the American people.
Yeah.
So I really do kind of not only want.
This is about these unfortunates who are in boats that are being subject to summary executions by the U.S. government because they are allegedly narco terrorists. This is the way she's speaking about this. Now, I am finding this entire situation extremely distressing. There are other ways of dealing with narco terrorism or drug running or whatever you want to call it than dropping bombs on them, particularly when you really don't know who's on that boat and what they are doing. But for Megyn Kelly to just say the quiet part out loud and just say, yeah, she wants to see suffering. Now, make no mistake. I am self-aware enough to know that if in a case where I was extremely enraged or extremely frightened, I may be capable of serious violence for a short period of time, either to defend myself or somebody else, or just because something so awful has happened that I act out. But the idea of wanting to see people suffer for a prolonged period of time, no, I don't think I'm capable of that. And moreover, the fact that she is feeling perfectly free to express that publicly, and nobody, and she's doing this and she still has a job. She's admitting to wanting to watch a dismembered person who is still breathing, still alive, in salt water, drowning and dying. I mean, my God.
That's the thing. It's like it's all part of the propaganda of making these people guilty or innocent, doesn't matter. Make them the baddies out there, that they're the drug runners, they're the narco terrorists, right? Proof be damned.
Those drugs. I mean,
well, that's the thing. Probably most of those are not drug runners, if any of them. They're just fishermen out there
because they've just been bombed. We have no way of knowing that.
I was gonna involve this, but I want to see how big the story develops. But apparently, there's people who are starting to file lawsuits and stuff. I guess the United States, who are relatives of these people on these boats. So, how much that's going to expose will be remain to be seen. But I hope something comes of that.
Yeah, I would just say this about like the price of one of those missiles is more than the drug yield of that boat, or more than those people will bring in the entire year, more than you're hurting the whole drug operation. They use 2 missiles. Okay. So, and then, Megyn Kelly, what she's doing there, I really appreciate a conversation we had back in our HLM days, Lainey, about Birth of a Nation, and culminating that to like the Bush years, and kind of this undercurrent of like a socially conservative crowd that like percolates on its own, and like an upper echelon of like fiscally conservative Republicans that keep to themselves but know they have to meet. And Megyn Kelly is kind of in the wind from that upper echelon and trying to jump into like a lynching culture, which I think speaks to an overturned window that Trump has successfully moved. Obama has moved an overturned window to some permanent places. So has Trump, and I think this is one of them where people feel comfortable speaking about America's enemies, like this, and creating this kind of pageantry around the violence against them. But Trump is pardoning the Honduras president that brought in 400 tons of cocaine, probably good stuff, like into the United States. And he's giving the Chapo, Mexico's most notorious kingpin in Mexico's history, his sons have kind of taken over the operations. His son just got a plea deal. He still has to serve 10 years. He was going to serve multiple lifetimes. So there's a real game between the Mexican government, which is a foreign government, which right away puts it on its back heel to the U.S.'s interests and government and where it's going to move, and where Trump wants to take things in South America. So my faith is in, Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, Her PhD in climate change led to her paper being part of like the UN's combating of climate change. I think she has a very global, diplomatic perspective, and she's backing the Colombian president, who's really agitational in the UN against what the US is doing in Israel, and sees a lot of like what the Venezuela situation being a distraction to all that. Mm-hmm. So their voices, I want to bring more into the US media, because even within Spanish media, they have their own issues to handle. But I think they have real clarity about what Trump's moves are and what kind of culture he needs to develop. Now, I'm going to close with this. George W. Bush had a very different culture in his ramp up to invading Iraq. There's a lot of similarities, but what's missing, what's different is exactly this that you highlighted, this visceral, kill him.
Yeah. That's where we're getting to. We're getting to idiocracy. I don't think we're going to need 500 years to get there. Maybe 5. we'll survive.
Maybe we're there and we're just, we're living off of the fumes of people who got a comprehensive education at one point. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah. Well, finally, if you're into puns, because this is an aqua themed show, Jose. So everything's got to be. It's like you're the worst seafood restaurant you've ever been to, but with really good food.
You're going to be at home for the next 3 days after that, though.
Exactly. So what we were talking about before, the IRS agents, they're going to be required to watch OnlyFans to determine if content fits no tax on tips criteria. Oh, these poor people. Oh, what kind of inhumane... Why is there a dead raccoon in a toilet? What the hell kind of business? No, stop giving me the dead raccoon with the toilet. What is this?
Oh, Lord. Okay, sorry about that, folks. This is not the main story. There is a drunken raccoon, and it's all very bad, but you can read it on the
Maybe that's an OnlyFans channel, too. That could be.
Yeah, well, that could be.
All right. So IRS agents will be required to watch pornographic content on OnlyFans to determine if the content meets the, quote, no tax on tips law included in Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. The president's controversial tax and spending policies were passed on July 4th, 2025, with the slashing of taxes on tips being designed to incentivize people to earn more tips at work. However, the new law included a caveat. Pornographic creators and actors, including OnlyFans influencers, were not entitled to have taxes waived on their work. Some campaigners have argued that the wording is too vague, with one accountant telling the New York Times that the line of what is considered pornography is unclear. Not in my house growing up. You knew exactly what the hell pornography was when Mom was yelling at you. How dare you bring this filth into my house? Where's the line? Said Catherine Studley. Studley, that's funny. An unintentional funny name in OnlyFans and Studley. All right, who works with several OnlyFans creators. Just because you're OnlyFans, it doesn't necessarily mean it's pornographic. That is true. I've heard tell that people just get on there and be eating sandwiches all day. I mean, all right, what?
They have the ASMR. Some of them are doing, fitness or yoga, and they're doing some interesting angles. And there are some folks who have very unique fetishes.
Right.
That, we could be looking at it in plain sight and nobody thinks twice, but somebody's really enjoying it.
It ain't just pornos, y'all. There's cooking channels on there, yoga channels. It just happens to be a lot of, people doing stuff with cucumbers on. I'm just saying, defining what pornography actually is often proven difficult for lawmakers, meaning that it usually has to be judged on a case-by-case basis. Isn't that the way things should be, on a case-by-case? I don't know. I'm not one of them lawyer types. When the First Amendment is used to defend pornography in court, lawmakers have to view the material in question to make a judgment. All right. So they got to look at it. That means taxpayers who report tips from OnlyFans will likely need to have their content viewed by an IRS agent. What? We keep Johnny Law out of this. Ultimately, it would be the subjective determination of an IRS examiner or a tax court judge. Thomas Gorzinski, a tax preparer, I probably butchered that name, I'm sorry, told the New York Times, sometimes you look at something that's clearly pornography, but sometimes you look at something and you think, it's subjective. Somebody might be really into it. I mean, peanut butter. You can do all kinds of things with peanut butter. I'm just saying, and some people are allergic.
Ms. Tree, hashtag just the tips.
Just the tips. That's what the never mind. There's a joke that goes with that. I'm gonna save that.
Yeah, we all know it.
Highbrow. Professions that do enjoy tax exemptions on their tips include bartenders, waiters, non-radio DJs. Those are the club DJs. There's a difference. Big difference. Although one could be the other. Maids, plumbers, tattoo artists, gold caddies, and several dozen. Wabin, how do I get a job? It's supposed to be golf caddies. Yeah. No, I want to be a gold caddy. I want to paint myself in gold and look pretty and all shiny out in the sunlight. You know what I'm talking about, Jose. Oh, all right. However, getting the policy into a workable state has been a lengthy process with calls for more jobs, including clergy members, chiropractors, and even Santa Claus performers to be included in the bill. Wait, clergy members? That's you, lady.
Yeah,
don't you?
Yeah. If you do funerals, weddings, baptisms, it's not. I never require it or anything, but people will sometimes give you an honorarium. If you do something like that.
Honorarium, is that what it's called? Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
If I do a wedding, a wedding or a funeral or something, it's not, I don't require it. I don't expect it. But it does happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Chiropractors, man. Yeah, especially if you get a bone that's popped right back into place. Yeah, you should tip them. The decision to exempt pornography. What? What are you talking about? You having fits again?
You know what I'm talking about. It does.
The decision to. All right, just put that in the old quiet bag there for a second. The decision to exempt pornographic creators who could have been exempted from tax as online creators was made after conservatives and Christian groups wrote a letter to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The letter suggested that the government should not give tax breaks to predatory industries that profit from exploiting young men and women, destroying marriages, families, and lives. Oh, so they're talking about the church. Wait, what? What happened? It's the same thing. If you apply it, I'm just saying. Meanwhile, OnlyFans has seen its popularity soar in recent years, with Forbes determining that $7.2 billion was spent on the website last year, according to Addiction Help. Around 67% of American men and 41% of women view pornography each year on sites including OnlyFans. And that's not to say 67% of American men and 41% of American women view pornography on OnlyFans. They just happen to include that in the menu. You have various choices out there, folks. Choose your pornography wisely. Ding. Statistics were particularly high among younger people, with 57% of people aged 18 to 25 admitting to watching adult content, compared to 29% of those aged 26 or older. So Project 2025, written by the Heritage Foundation, states that pornography should be outlawed in the U.S., something Jessica Godtel, a financial planner for sex workers, fears could be around the corner. Yeah, it's starting to, I don't think they're going to get that. You can't take, it's like guns with Republicans. You'll take pornography from my cold, dead fingers. You understand me? You ain't take away my pornos. You sons of biscuits eaters. You take my pornos away or come after you with this fist. That's right.
All right. So we're moving into, this is just clown
Don't
world.
take my pornos away.
This is just clown world.
Yeah, well, I think the AI pornography and then like these crazy running robots that are definitely going to have guns and be shooting us someday might also be trying to replace prostitutes at their jobs, because I do think there are people, maybe within the church, that would love to completely eliminate pornography and prostitution, one side of its, engagement as much as they can, to try to control it in a different way.
I'm also, again, I have a First Amendment concern here as well. And I mean, I know the Potter O. Stewart, pornography when you see it. And I think, okay, we could all probably go with that. But it's sorry, the comments are doing pretty great right now. But the whole thing is, again, what are we going to call it? You have somebody who's doing yoga videos or fitness videos. If you remember back from the 80s, there was this thing on Showtime called Aerobicize, and they had if you remember those, and they were 15-minute shorts of young women in tight clothing doing various exercises, all with their booties sticking out and their mouths open.
No, I can't say that I remember any of those. It's in the 80s. Is that a decade? With the 80s? No, I don't.
Honestly, there's something else. But again, at what point are we going to be drawing these lines? We've just decided, and we're deciding that some tips are tax deductible and others are not. Just because you don't like a particular industry. And again, how are they going to determine what is pornographic, particularly given the fact that the internet has given rise to just about every kink or fetish being made openly available and indulgible by people. And again, some of those kinks and fetishes do not involve genitalia. They do not involve naked bodies. They do not involve a visible orgasm or visible arousal or body fluids.
I mean, it kind of helps, but you don't necessarily. I'm just saying, it's just, if you want to paint a picture, I mean, in some cases, literally.
It provides the IRS with a remarkable amount of control. The IRS pretty much gave up trying to control the activities of churches that were claiming tax deductions, just because I think it got so incredibly unwieldy. Part of it is to cater to the religious right, and make no mistake, but it also just got incredibly unwieldy for them to do this. And now they're going to be watching OnlyFans.
Yeah, they got to watch it.
Yeah, they're going to have to watch it to determine whether this is pornography. And again, some of those agents may be in the know, or they're going to have to undergo education into ASMR and various kinks to be able to spot it. I mean, this is a waste of time.
Yeah, this is just more the rights versions of virtue signaling, right? And messing with people's money too at the same time.
Yeah,
it's mostly the messing with the money part, but the other is just a nice little screw you.
And I think one last point, wasn't Joe Biden, everybody was attacking him for every single little thing. I didn't even vote for the guy, but he wanted a bunch of IRS agents to basically help monitor how the upper class handles its money. And in my opinion, I love that, because I know a lot of them get them from cartels. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, the IRS should be scrutinizing those larger accounts and where larger money comes from. But instead, what IRS agents we have, they're going to be watching OnlyFans.
They're watching OnlyFans, and any money they happen to save on not allowing for the deductibility of the tips is going to go to torpedoing fishing boats. Make it make sense.
Yeah. No, that's where we're at, folks. This is the coming towards the end of 2025 and then opening the door for an even wackier 2026. 3 more years of Trump, unless something happens, legally or otherwise. But anyway, Jose, we appreciate you coming on. You want to tell us about what's coming up on Friday on Chicago Corner Network?
I appreciate that, Uncle Warren. Thank you for having me on. Laney, what you call it? I dropped the RSVP link. There will be a candidate forum at Sketchbook Brewery and Skokie from 7:30 to 8:30. Chicago DSA will be there from 6 to 9 p.m. So you can come have a drink with us. It's sponsored by the Chicago DSA and the Western Suburban Illinois DSA. So this is a 2-chapter event. It's open to the public, and it will be live streamed on a channel that Lainey and I have worked on together, Chicago Corner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And next week, by the way, we are going to have a special guest, Bill Tilford, Uncle Bill Tilford. So we've got another uncle for everybody. Bill Tilford is a political gadfly. He worked on the Ron Paul campaign. I interviewed him several times over at Harlan's on Civically Minded. But he is also a legend in the shortwave community and in the Latin music community, specifically Cuban music community. He's been a writer and he hosted many, many shows, including from the Isle of Music and Uncle Bill's Melting Pot. And he's going to be talking about what's going on with Venezuela and why it may not be a great idea for us to try a ground war or any other kind of war in Venezuela. He's a very astute, very interesting man who is a big advocate, or has been, of cultural diplomacy, the exchange of music and the arts, but also very politically minded. So I think it's going to be a great show. Also, after that, the week after that, and Uncle Warren, you may not have seen this, and I do apologize for not being communicative, but I've got a guy here in the Chicago area who is doing his own radio show through a local community college station. He's a guy about our age who decided to get into it. And we're going to talk about independent media and how he got started and how he's launched this. And I'm hoping it's going to be an inspiration for folks who want to get into media journalism or at any age, and how to be in media. So please do follow us on our social media. Please do subscribe to our Substack. Like, share, and subscribe also to the Undercurrent page. We appreciate you all, really.
Yeah, we sure do. So this show, again, will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. You'll see my ugly mug again on Friday morning, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time, for Morning Extra. And then, of course, the Silly Secret Show Saturday night. Yeah, and we've got a lot of stuff coming up, not just on here, but our friends in the space. We've got some shows coming up down the pike as we get more guests on this show. I'll have my special Festivus show on the 23rd, so that'll be a sublime affair where you could come and cry with your favorite beverage or thing that you smoke or imbibe. That's up to you. So, but we got a lot of stuff coming up. So, and I appreciate Jose coming on. I appreciate everybody in our chats on YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and Instagram.
We had quite a few people checking us out on Instagram and everywhere. We really appreciate your help.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, guys, we will see you, Jose, on Friday night on Chicago Corner. Again, I think that's going to be at 7:45 p.m. Eastern time, if my math is correct. Sometimes it's not.
If your math is mathin'.
My math is sometimes it maths, sometimes it says peace out, home slice.
On Friday, it's 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Central time on Chicago Corner.
Yeah, Central time.
Okay. Yeah, so these Chicago people, these Chicago people don't understand there's an Eastern time zone. They're just like, no, those people don't exist. All right. Thanks again, guys. Any final thoughts, Lainey, before we get out of here?
Love you all. Thank you so much for your support. And, just keep your eyes open, your heart open, but keep your brain also working and putting in those filters that are necessary right now.
Use your critical thinking skills. Jose,
And
any
be
final
careful with that
thoughts?
porn.
Join a local organization, or at the very least, register to vote and let local officials know that you're aware of them. Thank you all so much for listening to me today.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great one. We'll see you next week. Peace.